South Carolina gets its say today in the Republican presidential primary. And if polls and former President Trump's predictions are right, it could be another setback for the state's former governor, Nikki Haley. Still, she says today is not make or break, and she will be a candidate tomorrow.
Look, I get it. In politics, the herd mentality is enormously strong. A lot of Republican politicians have surrendered to it. The pressure on them was way too much. They didn't want to be left out of the club. Of course, many of the same politicians who now publicly embrace Trump privately dread him. They know what a disaster he's been and will continue to be for our party.
Haley has criticized suggestions she abandon her campaign and cede the Republican nomination before every voter cast a ballot. And so far, her campaign is still raising a lot of money, bringing in more than $16 million just last month. And next month, on March 5th, there is Super Tuesday. About a third of GOP delegates will be up for grabs. Still, South Carolina is home for Nikki Haley, a two-term governor who served in the legislature before that. She's never lost an election in the state. One of her senators, Republican Tim Scott, a Republican presidential contender last year himself, believes Haley's winning streak will come to an end today. He and I spoke Friday afternoon in between campaigning he's doing on behalf of the candidate he's endorsed, former President Trump.
This is one of the more exciting primaries I've seen in my lifetime. President Trump certainly brings a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy into the concept of becoming the next president. Frankly, most of us want 4 more years of Donald Trump for several reasons, but there's no doubt that this primary will be a blockbuster. Turnout is already higher than anticipated. And the good news is Republicans are coming out to support Donald Trump, while the Haley camp, they're asking for Democrats and independents to actually join in voting in the Republican primary. I've never seen that before from a Republican candidate, but that just says how desperate she is and how high the stakes are. This is going to be a double digit, I've said 20 points on previously, but I'm being conservative. I would not be surprised if this is not a 2-1 turnout type of victory.
Let me talk to you a little bit about your endorsement of Donald Trump, because, I think some people were kind of curious about how quickly you came out. I imagine you know Nikki Haley really well. She was your governor. You guys worked together. What is it about Donald Trump that led you to endorse him over your former governor?
Well, a couple of really important points. I do know both candidates really well. They have some things actually in common. But one of the points of distinction that really made it an easy choice for me to support Donald Trump is when I look from 2017 to 2020, I look at the legislative priorities that moves America forward. Donald Trump said yes every time I gave him a call. When it came down to opportunity zones becoming law, providing over $75 billion to the poorest communities in this country, the person that worked with me the most was Donald Trump. He signed the legislation. When it came to the TCJA, the largest tax cut in American history, larger than even Ronald Reagan, who actually went to the mat with us to get that done. I wrote the domestic side of that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but it was President Trump that helped us get that accomplished. And then at the signing, he called me up to the front and gave me an opportunity to speak. The person, time after time after time, who has shown me the kind of deference and opportunity to showcase our joint work, none other than Donald Trump. My experience with Nikki Haley on the debate stage was exactly the opposite. And so I will say without any question, it wasn't so much a vote against Nikki Haley, but it was without question a strong endorsement for Donald Trump. He's been good for America. He's been good for my home state, and he's been good to me.
There was a time, though, you thought maybe you could do a better job than him, right?
No question. I thought America would benefit from an optimistic, positive message. And the president, Trump, and I spoke while I was even running for president. And he welcomed the message that I brought to the American people. I still believe, without any question, America needs an injection of enthusiasm, optimism, and unity. And what President Trump said just a few days ago was that success begets success. In other words, one of the fastest ways for us to unify the country is to make sure that people have more money in their pockets, to make sure that inflation comes down, to make sure that crime and chaos are things of the past and law and order is a thing of the future. That kind of reaction to my run for president is another strong example of why I believe in Donald Trump.
Let me talk a little bit about some of the red flags, obviously, that Ambassador Haley, Governor Haley, has put up. She argues that it is time for a change in leadership, a new generation. She has made the argument that you're going to have an election, if it is Biden versus Trump, that is widely unpopular at the top of the ticket. Do you share any of those concerns?
I don't. The one thing I am puzzled by is how does a candidate make progress by insulting all the seniors who are going to vote in the primary? I don't know how effective that strategy is to tell people just because they're over the age of 60 or 70 that you're too old and incompetent just because of your age. I've had the great pleasure of spending several hours with Donald Trump. And the one thing I can tell you is he reminds me more of a 40-year-old than a 50-year-old. He has incredible energy. If you sit with him just for an hour, you walk away and ask yourself, how does he have so much energy? And I will say without any question, President Trump is up for the task, not for this year, not just next year, but for 4 more years. And I do not share any of her strong opinions about seniors declining simply because of their age. I've seen example after example. As a matter of fact, my mama just turned, y'all forgive me for saying it, 80 years old recently, and she is sharp as a tack. So I have lots of people in my life who I respect and love and appreciate. They're sharp as they were 30 years ago.
Say a lot of us had the pleasure of being introduced to your mom on the national stage. I think a lot of our listeners will remember those moments. Let me move down the list, though, because the other question surrounding former President Trump is obviously the legal side of it. These trials that are coming up, one of them in New York, on track to start next month. The argument has been made that he will be a distracted candidate, that too many resources will be used for legal defense and won't be enough of attention on sort of down ballot races. What do you say to some of those criticisms and concerns?
Well, I believe in the Trump coattails, number one. Here's what we saw in 2016. We saw us winning, the Republican Party winning back the majority in the House, the Senate, and getting the White House as well. So we saw the kind of monumental 2018 as well. We saw the kind of monumental success that was shocking over the 4 years that we had Donald Trump at the top of our ticket. So the one thing we know without any question is that he draws a lot of attention, no doubt about it. And the criticism that he's receiving right now, most people would wilt. He gets stronger and stronger under the pressure. That's the kind of leader we want running our country. And that's the kind of person we believe will restore confidence around the globe. We've lost that because of Joe Biden's weakness. We've lost that because of his inability to do his job. We see that case in point in Afghanistan with the botched withdrawal. We see that with a war in Ukraine. Clearly, we see that in the conflict in the Middle East, the aggression in the Indo-Pacific. We didn't have any of that under Trump. So what I believe is that the mass media, the liberals, the progressives, governors, mayors, DAs, state attorneys, they seem to be weaponizing the law, creating a two-tiered system where they hunt Republicans while they protect Democrats.
Do you worry about a conviction, though?
I don't. Honestly, what I worry about is the long-term negative impact of using and weaponizing the legal system against your political opponents. That should be concerning not just to those in politics, but to every single everyday American who's working very hard, paycheck to paycheck, wondering if America will remain the greatest, strongest, and fairest country on the planet. If you will weaponize the justice system, be it the federal or state, against your political opponents, they'll come after you too.
If the results in this primary are what you and many polls predict they will be, and it is a pretty resounding victory for Trump, what should be the next step for Nikki Haley?
She should write a letter to all of her supporters telling them that she has resigned, and she's resigned herself, that she is not the person for the job, that she will support Donald Trump, and she should list the reasons why. She should say without question, with great clarity, that America is better off with Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. That millennials deserve the right to become first-time homeowners. And under Joe Biden, that's not happening. But under Donald Trump with 2% inflation, a 30-year mortgage was 3%. Instead of having chaos and crime in the streets under Donald Trump, you have law and order. Nikki Haley should say, having a president who will protect your Social Security like Donald Trump is the right direction for America. I do not expect her to say these things, but it would be the truth, and it would galvanize our country, not our party, but our country behind the next president of the United States.
But what's wrong with staying in the race? She's still raising money. Her campaign is still getting contributions. She is picking up some delegates, and she has made the case that we shouldn't have in the Republican Party or either party a coronation, that there needs to be an alternative, a choice for voters. What's wrong with that?
Well, the voters have spoken. In Iowa, they were loud and clear, the largest margin in the history of the state. In New Hampshire, where they invited independents and Democrats, she had the endorsement of the state's governor, and she still lost by double digits. But Jared, she didn't just lose by double digits. She also lost the women vote against Donald Trump. She lost the millennial vote against President Trump. She lost seniors against President Trump. In Las Vegas, she lost none of the above. So the question we should ask ourselves is this a coordination process? And the answer is clearly no. The people have spoken. And after we speak here in South Carolina, the message should be heard. But it will be heard around the country. And by March the 19th, I predict that President Trump will have enough delegates to be our nominee. And we should go ahead and turn our attention towards Joe Biden.
That would certainly, close the door once you amass those delegates. Let me finish with this. Earlier this week, the former president really was singing your praises when he was asked a question about a potential shortlist for running mates. I think you're on it, Senator. What are is that a job you're interested in?
Well, it certainly is a high compliment to be considered for any part of the ticket. I thank God Almighty that I live in a country where a kid growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty, uncertain about his future, could one day rise to the place where he's even considered in the conversation for president or vice president. But that's not the mission today. The only mission today, Jared, should be making sure that we secure for the American people 4 more years of low inflation, low crime, high enthusiasm, but low unemployment. That requires Donald Trump.
So you haven't given him any advice on picking a running mate?
Well, the only advice I've given him was I'm not going to ask him for anything. I was very clear before I endorsed him that I was not endorsing him in a quid pro quo. There is no theory of reciprocity. My goal is to make sure America is stronger. I believe he is the candidate to get that done.
I hope you can't blame me for at least trying on those last couple of
Jared,
questions.
you're a good man. I love your enthusiasm and your energy.
Listen, see if I could break a little bit of news on the podcast, but I will let you, sir, get back to the campaign trail. Senator Tim Scott, I always appreciate your enthusiasm for the process and what you bring to the conversation, and I thank you for your time, sir.
Yes, sir. Have a great day.